The 10 most influential spiritual living people. Let's have a look. Hello, this is Shores of Infinity with your host Chris, and a friend of mine sent me a list of the 10 most influential living spiritual people. Sounds fun. Let's have a closer look. The problem is, of course, always, what's spiritual? I don't know how they measure who is the most influential, but there's a big misunderstanding, obviously, between religion, spirituality, wellness, and all kinds of new agey stuff. The list is by the Watkins magazine from January 2023, and it has some very interesting views. Number 1, the big cheese, is the Dalai Lama. And it's probably true. The Dalai Lama could be the most influential living spiritual person there is. He is also religious, but he's not the religious leader of his people. He's the political leader of his people. The religious leader of the Tibetans is the Karmapa. So this is fine for me. Well, number 2, I cannot agree with. Pope Francis is not a spiritual person. He's a religious leader of Catholic Christianity, and that's it. It is very sad that people can't get the difference between religion and spirituality. It's not the same. Religion is belief, spirituality is experience. Number 3, Greta Thunberg. I also don't know what's spiritual about her. I have nothing against her. I think she's doing great work in the green field of environmentalism, but there's nothing spiritual about it. There is no doubt that Pope Francis and Greta Thunberg are very influential, but spiritual? Number 4, Eckhart Tolle. Yes, very influential. Super popular, quite legit, although I very much doubt that his message is very useful to most people, but it sounds very useful. And so he's probably number 2 on the list, not number 4. Because if we cross off the Pope and Greta Thunberg, then Eckhart is number 2. Number 5, or number 3, I should say, Jaggi Vasudev, also known as Sadhguru. Very, very popular and influential dude who talks about everything. So I would even think that Sadhguru could be number 2, because there's no other spiritual person who talks about as many topics. Number 6, and here's the shocker, Gwyneth Paltrow. My first thought was, what? But then I reconsidered. She is very popular. She's very well known. Most actors are. And she's very popular, at least in the US. She's one of the wellness queens and thus has a lot of followers. She seems to be quite interested in shamanism and this and that. So while she's not awake or enlightened or anything, she's very interested in spirituality and brings it to the people. Number 7, Russell Brand. I don't think that Russell Brand is more popular than Joe Rogan, but he's very popular. He has a very funny channel that is mostly political and a small side channel which is more spiritual, which is not so popular. But he himself is very popular. Is he so influential? Not sure. I mean, I really like his channel. It's hilarious. He's a very good comedian. But is he one of the top 10 most influential spiritual people? Number 8, Oprah Winfrey. No doubt she's one of the most influential news media persons, journalists, whatever you want to call her, showmaster, showmistress, especially in the US. But internationally, she's not very important. And moreover, and more importantly, there's nothing spiritual about her. I mean, you could argue maybe with Greta Thunberg and the Pope, but Oprah, spiritual. If she's spiritual, then I'm a broomstick. Number 9, David Lynch. Not sure either if he's in the top 10, but he's definitely spiritual and is definitely very influential through his movies and probably otherwise as well with his transcendental meditation stuff and so on. Yeah, interesting choice. Not bad. I don't think top 10, but not bad. And finally, number 10, Jane Goodall. Very, very interesting choice. Spiritual. Definitely very well known. She's the one with the gorillas. Still alive. 89 by now. Is she spiritual? That's the question. The answer is yes. Definitely awake. And thus qualifying. If she's one of the top 10, I don't know. But it's a good idea. Why not? She's very well known. So what do we learn from this list? It's almost always the same with these journalists writing lists like that. It says more about the journalists writing the list than about the people on the list. This is a very green list in spiral dynamics terms. So we have these two things on the one, or three. They have to be living, they have to be influential, and they have to be spiritual. Living is easy, but to bring influential and spiritual together, that seems to be a big problem. And if someone is centered in spiral dynamics green, then of course you will find a lot of green and also blue people for this list. So how do they define spiritual? They say here it's the Watkins bookshop in London, and they have a magazine since 2011. So they probably place quite an emphasis on who sells the most books. Then it's easy to see who has the most followers on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. But how does one qualify as spiritual? The only reference to that is, again, their bookshop, encouraging spiritual discovery and providing seekers with esoteric knowledge. So that's probably what they think that spirituality is, or a spiritual teacher is. Encouraging spiritual discovery, okay, and providing seekers with esoteric knowledge. So what kind of esoteric knowledge are Pope Francis, Greta Thunberg, Jane Goodall, Oprah Winfrey and David Lynch providing? To millions and millions of people internationally. I'd really like to know that. There will be a video about the next 10, but here's my list. We can probably safely stay with the first 3, Dalai Lama, Sadhguru and Tole. The next 2 could be Joe Rogan, Russell Brand. Why not? They're really very popular. They have as much reach or even more than any major news channel. Possible contenders for rank 6 to 10 in any possible order would be, they're on the list also of the magazine, but later on, Deepak Chopra, Wim Hof, Paulo Coelho, Mata Amrita Nandamai, the latter of whom there's a video on this channel, by the way, in the series Important Female Gurus. And let's not forget Rhonda Byrne. Who are these people? In the magazine list, Deepak Chopra is number... Where is he? Deepak Chopra number 17, Paulo Coelho number 12, Wim Hof number 11, Rhonda Byrne number 32, and Mata Amrita Nandamai number 30. Rhonda Byrne is very, very important with the secret manifestation stuff. Mata Amrita Nandamai is the epitome of empathy and love on the spiritual marketplace. Deepak Chopra is one of the best-selling book and course teachers in spirituality. Very, very best-selling. Wim Hof with his breathing and ice bathing techniques, very influential. And Paulo Coelho, also best-selling author with really deep stories. Now, for me, real spirituality starts at Hawkins scale 700. That is complete enlightenment. And no one on this list, not in the top 10 of the magazine, nor in my top 10 here, is there. So while they are very influential, they are not very spiritual. They're all cases of the one-eyed leading the blind. Of course, the top 3, Dalai Lama, Eckhart Tolle, Sadhguru, they have the potential of being beyond 700, but they're usually not. And if they were, they would most probably not be anymore on the list of the most influential or most popular teachers. So while I don't want to diss anyone, or maybe I do, it is interesting to see that the most influential spiritual people are not the most spiritual people. They're definitely influential, and some of them are also on the spiritual path. But what exactly do they have to teach, and how do they probably skew the perception of what is spiritual? They're definitely idealists, but idealism and spirituality is also not the same. There are similarities, of course. Yeah? They're not materialists, although in some cases that is debatable. But they definitely participate in shaping what people think awakening and enlightenment and such is, what the goal is. Well, obviously they are not enlightened and have never been fully enlightened. With the possible exception of Dalai Lama, Sadhguru and Eckhart Tolle, they might have had peak experiences in that direction. So why do we look at this on this channel? Does it matter? It only matters insofar as I said, our perception and our hope, and with our I mean most people, including some of you, of what enlightenment is, how to get there, what it feels like once you're there, is influenced by people who have no idea what it is and just assume stuff in a way that is digestible for the masses. It's like Reader's Digest. Here we have Spiritual Digest. The very fact that it seems to be acceptable to a lot of people, what those people are saying, is an indication that is probably wrong. Look at how Greta Thunberg and Russell Brand and J.P. Sears and Jordan Peterson and so on, how they try to convince people what is the right thing. Who are they convincing? Who is doing the convincing? Who are the ones being convinced, and of what? This is all based on the assumption that we're all adults, rational adults, who are awake and can act accordingly, who can change what they're doing, who have agency. It's like the American dream, only in spirituality. You can reach anything, you can reach everything. If you work hard enough, the sky is the limit. This is a message that is acceptable for a lot of people. And this message is wrong, because there is nothing to achieve and you cannot change yourself. And if enlightenment ever happens to you, you will see that it's completely different from what you've been thinking it is, based on the stories of those people who had no idea what they were talking about in the first place. Many of which are also living from telling people bullshit. That's their main source of income. So of course they cannot tell people, okay, enlightenment will happen to you or not. There's nothing you can do for or against it. That is a very, very unpopular message that cannot be sold easily. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for liking and subscribing, giving the video a thumbs up if you like this kind of content. Thank you for joining me on Patreon. Thank you for all those who have joined me already on Patreon. Thank you to Sayan, Ofi, Andre, Chris, Jakub, Tamas, Gabriel, Daniel, Carrie, Matthias, Robert, Brian, Björn, Mark, Patricia, Kelly, Goshen, Gregory, Alex, Tyler, Alex, Marcus, Thomas, Raghu, Chris, Enda, Brittany, Patrick, Sam, Alan, and Isaac. And those who I have forgot to mention because of the chaotic nature of Patreon. Thank you and see you soon.